The best guy I played against might have been, Larry Bird, someone
Yeah.
like that.
How good was
Michael
Bird?
Jordan.
I don't think people
don't
look at
appreciate.
him and think,
Yeah, they
oh, he's
said,
a
"Oh
white
no,
guy,
he's
slow guy.
a chubby white guy." He wore us out, man. Because he just this muscle here, the one between his ears.
Yeah.
That was his best, because he made the 3-pointers and he had assists and rebounded, steals. He was always at the right place at the right time on the court. One of the great players I had the opportunity to play.
Larry Bird did something to NBA legends that LeBron James hasn't replicated, even with everything he's accomplished. He didn't just unsettle opponents, he frightened them. Not anxious, not uneasy, genuinely shaken. Walking onto the floor against him felt like stepping into a storm you couldn't control. Magic Johnson openly admitted Bird was the only rival who made his hands tremble before tip-off. Michael Jordan said Bird was the one player who could actually get inside his head. Gary Payton labeled him the most lethal trash talker he ever encountered. And now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has confirmed the truth many suspected but few dared to say out loud. Bird reached a level of psychological dominance that, even with LeBron's achievements, accolades, records, and longevity, he hasn't entirely touched. And coming from a man who battled Bird directly, who played through multiple eras, and who observed LeBron's rise from day one, that kind of statement shifts the entire conversation. Once you understand what Kareem means, it becomes clear why the greatest players still discuss Bird as if he existed slightly outside the limits of the sport. What makes this so compelling is that Kareem isn't to one of those former stars stuck in the past insisting their era was unbeatable. He respects LeBron deeply. He's praised LeBron's discipline, his leadership, the remarkable consistency of a 21-year career. But when Kareem breaks down what sets Bird apart from LeBron, he's referencing something beyond championships or numerical dominance. He's speaking about the essence of competition itself and the ways the NBA has transformed in ways most fans rarely consider. Bird didn't simply rule his era, he haunted it. And in Kareem's eyes, there is a major difference between being the most skilled player on the court and being the one every opponent fears. One status builds greatness. The other creates mythology. That distinction is what keeps Bird's legacy echoing decades after his final game. Now consider Kareem's vantage point. This is someone who locked horns with Wilt Chamberlain in the 1970s, a player so physically overwhelming he looked engineered to dominate. He then went through the entire Bird-Magic rivalry of the 1980s, an era many still call the sport's true golden age. After retiring, he shifted to coaching, mentorship, and analysis, watching LeBron's full journey from teenage prodigy in 2003 to present-day icon. Few people on Earth have observed the sport's evolution across 5 decades as clearly as he has. So when he claims Bird possessed something LeBron hasn't fully captured, you can't wave it away as nostalgia. You pay attention. Kareem witnessed Bird's mind games up close. He remembers how the atmosphere inside arenas changed the moment Bird appeared. He recalls coaches redesigning strategies around stopping a single forward as if they were preparing for an entire roster. And here's the part that still gives people chills. Kareem once described Bird as style in a way that felt less like a scouting report and more like an encounter with a force of nature. He said Bird played chess while everyone else was playing checkers, and that wasn't just a clever line, it was reality. Bird could read a defense before it even materialized. He saw sequences unfolding multiple steps in advance. Defenders were convinced they'd cornered him only for him to bury a shot from an angle nobody expected, or whip a pass that shouldn't have been possible. His basketball IQ wasn't merely elite, it felt otherworldly. And what made it even more unnerving was that he did tell you exactly what he planned to do, then execute it effortlessly while laughing in your face. That level of psychological control never shows up on a stat sheet. Yet players from that era all echo the same sentiment. Bird invaded your mind and refused to leave. Now contrast that with LeBron's style. LeBron overwhelms opponents through preparation and meticulous command. He studies tendencies, memorizes schemes, and identifies weaknesses long before the opening tip. By the time the game starts, LeBron has already navigated the chessboard mentally, rehearsing every outcome. It is incredibly effective and a major reason he has stayed at an elite level for more than 20 years. But here's what Kareem keyed in on. LeBron forces you to respect his brilliance, while Bird made opponents fear the confrontation. Those create entirely different emotional realities. With Bird, players felt a genuine sense of dread, knowing he was targeting their confidence as much as the scoreboard. With LeBron, players feel pressure to execute flawlessly and maintain discipline. Both routes lead to winning, but only one produces the kind of stories that still make veterans shake their heads decades later. And when you examine the eras themselves, Kareem's point gains even more traction. The 1980s Bird's battleground were unforgiving. Hand-checking was legal. Defenders could grab, shove, and redirect offensive players without a whistle. The bad boy Pistons didn't just defend you. They assaulted your rhythm, trying to bruise you into hesitation. The Sixers, the Lakers, nearly every team embraced that physical philosophy. Every trip down the court required toughness. There was no modern spacing, no three-point proliferation opening lanes. Offenses fought through crowded floors and constant contact just to get a clean look. Bird excelled in that disorder, taking hits from Detroit, absorbing shots from Philly, and showing up the next night completely unfazed. Dropping 30 points with that same effortless shooting motion, Bird kept producing through pain most players today would never tolerate. Kareem remembers those clashes in detail because he was there for all of them. He watched Bird's body endure blows that would sideline modern stars for entire seasons. Back issues, nerve damage, constant pain, Bird carried all of it while still logging nearly 38 minutes per night for an entire decade. There was no load management, no strategic rest, none of the modern health maintenance approach. It was simply a relentless refusal to let his body surrender before his mind was ready. And the numbers make it clear this wasn't some exaggerated legend. Between 1984 and 1986, Bird averaged 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists while shooting almost 50% from the field and 40% from deep. 3 consecutive MVPs, 3 titles in a 5-year span, achieved against teams overflowing with Hall of Famers, Magic and Kareem's Lakers, Dr. J's Sixers, Isaiah Thomas's Pistons. That wasn't ordinary dominance, it was domination in the harshest environment possible. Now, shift to LeBron's timeline. When he entered the NBA in 2003, the sport was already undergoing a transformation. Basketball had gone global, the presentation had become sleeker, and the league's business side was expanding rapidly. But the biggest differences came from the rulebook. In 2004, hand-checking was eliminated. Defensive 3-second violations became tightly enforced. Suddenly, driving lanes widened, and referees started penalizing physical contact that once would have been ignored entirely. The structure of the game evolved into one where athleticism and spacing replaced the raw physical battles of the past. Kareem doesn't blame LeBron for that shift. He views it as natural progression. But he does point out how perfectly LeBron's physical gifts aligned with the new landscape. His blend of power, speed, and coordination became almost unstoppable in a league that no longer let defenders rough him up the way Bird routinely was. And here's where Kareem's argument becomes even more compelling. LeBron's extraordinary longevity, playing at a high level into his 40s, isn't only due to his discipline or rare genetics. It's also the product of the ecosystem modern stars benefit from. Today's players have access to advanced nutrition, cutting-edge recovery tools, sleep tracking, cryotherapy, injury prevention programs, and medical staffs that dwarf anything from past decades. Teams charter private planes with lie-flat seating, science-driven rest days are built into the calendar, and every detail is optimized to extend careers. Bird competed in an era where teams flew commercial, practiced immediately after grueling games, and the closest thing to sports science was sticking your knees into a freezing bucket. LeBron thrives in a system designed to preserve stars, and while his commitment deserves admiration, it's an advantage Bird never came close to having. So when people point to LeBron's 21 seasons as proof that he is tougher than Bird's 13, Kareem pushes back hard. He asks a different question entirely: what would Bird's career have been if he had access to modern medical care? What if the surgeries, therapies, and treatments available today existed in the 1980s? And what if he didn't have to grind through 82-game seasons in a league where opponents were actively trying to hurt you every night? Bird's body finally collapsed at age 35, not because he lacked toughness, but because the era demanded a physical toll that would be considered unthinkable today. LeBron playing into his 40s is incredible, but he is doing it in a structure built to protect stars in ways Bird could never have imagined. Both careers are remarkable, but the environments surrounding them could not be more different. One was forged by surviving a battlefield. The other unfolded like a meticulously managed marathon supported at every turn. Now let's look at the actual numbers, because even though Kareem insists stats never tell the full story, they still paint a meaningful picture. Larry Bird played only 13 seasons. In that span, he averaged 24.3 points, 10 rebounds, and 6.3 assists per game. His shooting percentages were elite, nearly 50% from the field, close to 38% from 3, and almost 89% at the free throw line. He became one of the earliest players to flirt with the 5.04.090 milestone, a standard of shooting mastery that remains rare even in the modern game. Kareem remembers opponents dreading Bird not only because he could score at will, but because he controlled the entire rhythm of the floor. Every rebound he grabbed instantly became a perfectly placed outlet pass. Every possession carried intention and structure. Nothing he did was wasted motion. LeBron's resume obviously spans more than 20 seasons. Across 21 years, he's averaged roughly 27 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists while shooting about 50% overall. He's a 4-time MVP, a 4-time champion, and he now owns the all-time scoring record that once belonged to Kareem himself. Those accomplishments are monumental, and Kareem has always respected the discipline required to sustain excellence for that long. Very few players could maintain that level of production for 2 decades. But when Kareem digs deeper, he also notices the impact of how much the modern game has sped up. Teams today average around 100 possessions per contest, compared to roughly 95 during Bird's prime. More possessions mean more chances to score, rebound, and assist. It's not a knock. It's simply mathematics. What continues to impress Kareem most about Bird is efficiency. The way Bird could control the entire game without chasing inflated totals, the way every touch mattered, still stands out to him even after watching LeBron dominate for 20 years. Under pressure in elimination games where everything hinged on a single night, Bird's numbers didn't dip, they rose. His averages jumped to 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists when the stakes were at their highest. In Game 7 South specifically, Bird shot better than 50% from the field, and almost never turned the ball over. Kareem loves that detail because it reveals how Bird's greatness came from command and timing rather than sheer volume. He didn't need to monopolize the ball. He just needed it when the outcome sat on a knife's edge, and when that moment arrived, he would seize complete control. LeBron's had iconic postseason stretches as well, the 2012 title run, the 2016 comeback, and the 2020 bubble championship all displayed overwhelming brilliance. But there were also periods when his efficiency dipped, especially when defenses packed the paint and forced him to rely on perimeter shooting. Then the durability debate enters the picture, and things become much more complicated. Bird's career ended at 35 because chronic back issues eventually made playing impossible. LeBron is still competing at age 40 and doing so at an all-star level. On the surface, that might imply LeBron is simply tougher or more dedicated, but Kareem refuses that simplistic takeaway. He emphasizes how dramatically the league's environment has shifted. Modern teams use private flights and top-tier travel accommodations that help players recover far more effectively. Medical staffs can detect and treat potential long-term problems before they ever escalate. And while today's schedule is still demanding, it contains far more built-in rest than anything Bird experienced. Bird has 13 seasons unfolded in a league that allowed significantly more contact and granted far less recovery time. LeBron's 21 seasons, meanwhile, exist in an ecosystem shaped by sports science, preservation, and longevity. So to Kareem, the question isn't who lasted longer, it's who maximized the conditions they were given. And by that measure, Bird's condensed stretch of pure dominance still holds tremendous significance. This leads directly into the part of Kareem's perspective that cuts the deepest. He has always believed that true greatness isn't defined by applause, highlights, or awards. It's defined by respect, specifically how other great players describe you once the lights go off and there's nothing left to promote. And when you listen to the legends from Bird's era talk about him, the tone shifts entirely. They don't say he was the quickest or most explosive. They say he was the one man who could break you psychologically before you even laced up. They talk about a competitor who didn't just aim to defeat you. He aimed to take your confidence and make you question everything about your game. Magic Johnson, Bird's greatest rival, once admitted that Bird was the only opponent who ever made him genuinely nervous, even at the peak of his powers. Gary Payton called Bird the coldest trash talker the league had ever seen, and Michael Jordan, long after both of their careers were over, revealed that Bird was the one player who truly scared him. None of that is exaggeration or nostalgic storytelling. It's respect built from pure psychological control. LeBron inspires a different reputation among his peers. They admire his preparation, his intelligence, his ability to elevate entire franchises, but it's not the visceral fear Bird generated. Kareem believes that difference comes from how each man constructed his competitive identity. Bird relied on psychological warfare as an art form. He wanted to embarrass you and grin while doing it. He'd call his shot, announce the exact move he planned to use, then execute it flawlessly while smiling. That wasn't arrogance. It was intentional dismantling of his opponent's confidence. LeBron, on the other hand, dominates through structure and precision. He studies every angle, every matchup, until the game slows to something he can manipulate. Both approaches are remarkably effective, but one inspires awe while the other inspires admiration. Kareem sees a meaningful distinction between the two responses. Over time, Kareem also noticed something else. Bird's rivals wanted to beat him. They wanted to take on his trash talk, stand their ground, and prove they could survive the psychological games. It felt personal. LeBron's rivals, especially in today's league, often hope to join forces with him instead of challenging him directly. We've watched it happen again and again, star players attempting to team up with LeBron rather than confront him. That trend reflects how the culture of competition has shifted. In Bird's era, pride came first. You validated your greatness by defeating the best, not by partnering with them. In LeBron's era, championships became the only measurement that mattered, even if they required forming super teams to pursue them. Kareem doesn't label one mindset superior. He simply observes that they reflect fundamentally different views on what competition represents. There's also the emotional bond between a player and a city. Bird didn't just play for Boston, he embodied Boston. He reflected the city's blue-collar edge, its stubbornness, its belief that grit beats glamour. Fans didn't just support Bird, they saw themselves in him. He didn't leave, didn't chase a brighter spotlight, didn't need to reshape his brand. His greatness was formed early and remained rooted in loyalty and identity. LeBron's path has been entirely different. Cleveland, Miami, Los Angeles, his career has revolved around. Movement, adaptation, shifting identities with new teams and new supporting casts, that's been LeBron's path. Kareem understands both sides of that story since he himself left Milwaukee for Los Angeles. But what stands out to him is that Bird never needed to search for the right fit. From the moment he stepped into Boston, he was exactly where he belonged, and everything around him adjusted accordingly. And that leads into what might be Kareem's most meaningful point in this entire discussion. To him, basketball has never been just about skill. It's always been a mirror of character. When he looks at Larry Bird and LeBron James, he sees two completely different interpretations of what greatness represents. Bird symbolized purity. No theatrics, no excuses, no self-promotion. He wasn't performing for cameras or constructing narratives. He was focused solely on one objective: winning. Everything else in his mind was background noise. LeBron represents something else entirely, the modern superstar. A global brand, a leader in social conversations, a figure who embodies professionalism in today's NBA landscape. Kareem admires that progression, yet he also senses that the core of competition shifted along the way. Modern stars can choose their teammates, manage their workload, and shape public perception instantly. Bird never had that kind of control. His legacy wasn't crafted through curated messaging. It was carved into the floor through bruises, injuries, and relentless battles, not through interviews, documentaries, or digital storytelling. That's why Kareem's voice in this debate carries such a calm certainty. He isn't trying to minimize LeBron's accomplishments. He's reminding people that greatness comes in different forms. One is built through adversity. The other thrives through opportunity. Bird's greatness was molded through discomfort. He played through injuries that would sideline players today for entire seasons. His back was a daily struggle, nerve pain shooting down his legs. Yet he still logged 37 minutes per game until his body physically refused to continue. LeBron's greatness, by contrast, is built on preservation, maximizing every advantage modern sports. Science provides to keep his body strong and his performance consistent across 20 years. One battled time with stubborn willpower. The other defied time through innovation, discipline, and strategy. Both are extraordinary, but the emotional resonance of Bird's ordeal, the sacrifice, the punishment, the pride is what stays with Kareem most. In Kareem's view, the true legends of basketball share one defining characteristic. They force the game to bend around them. Bird achieved that through anticipation and intellect, seeing the play before it even existed and exploiting weaknesses with surgical accuracy. LeBron shapes the game through force and adaptability, overpowering defenders or reconfiguring his style to fit the moment. The distinction isn't in impact. Both dominate. The real difference lies in how they made people feel. Bird made opponents uneasy the second he walked into the gym because they knew he would target their confidence before he targeted the scoreboard. LeBron commands respect through preparation and overwhelming ability, but it doesn't evoke the same primal tension that followed Bird everywhere he played. When Bird stepped onto the court, opponents felt real fear. They sensed something bad was coming, and they knew there was nothing they could do to avoid it. When LeBron takes the floor, players feel pressure, the awareness that one mistake will get punished instantly. Bird's greatness felt personal, like he was targeting you specifically. LeBron's greatness feels mechanical, like you're up against a perfectly engineered system. Both dominate the game, but only one, in Kareem's mind, embodied the raw spirit of competition, the way it once existed. So when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar weighs in on the Larry Bird versus LeBron James debate, he's not delivering a final verdict etched in stone. He's offering a perspective only someone who lived through both eras can share. To him, greatness isn't about longevity, totals, or merchandise sales. It's about whose presence reshaped the sports culture. Larry Bird accomplished that without the comforts or systems today's stars rely on. He did it through mental warfare, clutch brilliance, and a refusal to let opponents, or his own failing body, decide his fate. In doing so, he reminded the world what basketball once represented: pure competition, ruthless execution, and respect earned through dominance that stayed in your mind long after the game ended. And in Kareem's eyes, that will always be the truest measure of greatness, no matter what the records say. If you want more breakdowns like this, hit the like button and subscribe. The next deep dive drops soon.